So good afternoon and welcome everybody, and welcome to this discussion about solidarity in the documentary film industry. My name is Rishøj Jensen, and I will have the pleasure of taking you through this next hour, where we're going to talk about solidarity and how we work with it in the documentary industry, primarily in Europe, but of course also a little bit outside that. And of course we're gathered today here in this bit of a special online format, because we are all trying in the best possible way as a documentary industry and in life in general, of course, to deal with the current corona situation. And as you will see during the next hour, this is definitely a good way of dealing with it, trying still to get together and meet and talk and discuss how we structure and how we work in the documentary industry. We will talk about solidarity. We will talk about it in many different aspects and different ways. And as you can see in front of you in the screen, we have a panel lined up for you with Sonia, Marion, and Isabel. And I will leave the word to them in a minute. Welcome to all three of you, and great that you are here. Before I pass on the word to you, just a few words about the format that we will use for the next hour. We will use a fishbowl format that some of you might be familiar with. It means that, of course, we have the three panelists with us here, and they're going to talk about their take and their work with solidarity. But we also want to leave the floor to you who are participating to ask questions. So if you have a question, please look at the little box that you have next to the video feed, where you see one of the boxes saying questions. And if you have a question, just post it there. And then Celia, who is taking good care of this session, she will write you back and ask you probably a little follow-up or ask you a little bit more. And then when it fits to the debate and the discussion here, we will let you in, and you can post a question, or you can raise a topic that you want to bring up within the session. Just one practical note, it is that if you're joining us with a mobile, you will join us in for the question with audio only. If you are joining us from your laptop, your computer, we can bring you into the session with video also. So just let Celia know what you prefer and how you want to join the session with your question. So feel free to post questions in the little box on the right-hand side of your screen where it says questions, and then we will take that as we go along. So a warm welcome to all of you. I hope you have all been seeing the introductions by Sonia and Marion and Isabel. So we will not take like the whole introduction of all three of you and what you do, but we will start actually with you talking a little bit about this fantastic word solidarity, because I guess we all like to have solidarity in the documentary film industry, but maybe you can tell us a little bit more concrete about how do you actually work with solidarity. Isabel, can I start with you?
Yes. Yeah, I went to look up definitions of the word solidarity, actually, just to see if we were all, hopefully everybody did that, so that we were all talking about the same thing. I mean, if I think about that word and the work we do, I run the IDFA Bertha fund, particularly that word. The fund was started 20 years ago or 21 years ago now, out of the conclusion that the documentary field work was mainly dominated by filmmakers from the Northern Hemispheres, or the West, Europe, North America, and that there was a lack of perspective and stories coming from Africa, Asia, Latin America, Middle East. And I mean, quickly after some research, the conclusion was that this was partly due to the lack of financing for filmmakers working and living there, and also the isolation. I mean, obviously 21 years later, the globalization changed everything. People are connected, but still we operate as a fund that provides monetary grants for filmmakers to realize their films, at the same time offering all other kinds of support and connections within the international documentary world. what is at the basis of what we do and how we want to position ourselves as funds, and how I believe we have positioned ourselves in the overall years, that this is not a one-way stream. This is not a stream coming from the IDFA, the Documentary Film Festival, this fund funded mainly by European money going in one direction to these countries and these filmmakers. For us, what is crucial here and why we do this is because we think that the documentary world industry field is in need of more balanced perspective and different perspectives, and perspectives coming from all sides of the world. So just as much, I mean, I would say, I would really look at it in a practical sense. We are able to gather this money and send money to these countries as a practical thing, so people can realize their films and ideas, and at the same time they, making the films, are bringing us perspective, knowledge, creativity, challenge. So it's an exchange. So in that sense, I mean, I guess for me, to get back to your question, solidarity is about, I think the word mutual in any definition of solidarity is crucial, because it's about mutual support based on a common belief, idea, feeling, for which you undertake the action. So I mean, that's I think that's, for us, that's very important. I mean, we as a fund operate and do what we do because we want to safeguard the independence of the artists, filmmakers we support.
So really, dialogue is an essential element in your way of dealing with solidarity.
Yeah, dialogue, and I would also say exchange. Because it's not so much about agreeing always, obviously sometimes it is, but it's not so much about agreeing, but it's about exchanging views, exchanging stories. And I mean, and particularly because of documentary, what we're talking about, I mean, even the most artistic documentaries often touch upon social or political important issues. And I'm not saying that it has to be that way, but it's often, I mean, it's also in the genre of what documentary is. So in that sense, I think the balanced, for a dialogue, what you need is different perspectives.
Very good. We come much deeper into that a little later on, Isabel, but I mean, you come from a very global perspective on solidarity, you could say. Marion, also welcome to you. You have, I guess we can define it as a more European take on solidarity, representing Documentary Association of Europe.
Yes and no and maybe. Thank you, Isabel. That was a really good introduction. And thank you, Ove, of course, for hosting us all here. I don't know, I felt a bit the same as Isabel described it. When I started thinking about the word solidarity, it's such a big word, and so many different pictures come up in front of my inner eyes, and so many different feelings and different definitions of the word, and a lot of positive feelings and pictures, but also somehow negative ones, and some of them Isabel already touched upon. Also the question of equality and who decides what solidarity means and what form of solidarity is right or wrong or should be implemented. So because we are in a format that is called Networks of the Future, I then thought, okay, I need to take a little bit more of a pragmatic approach on this and really think about the different ways of which I have been, and of course in teams and for Day and other things that I've been working in, how we have been thinking and working with solidarity. And I will want to start by saying that I think that solidarity starts with how we ourselves, every single one of us, act within the community that we are working in. And I think one of the beautiful examples of this was I had the pleasure of being asked to host an EVA roundtable at last year's IDFA, where we were talking about networking and festivals. And in a way, we left this table with the agreement. Of course, we had also talked about more concrete steps that should be taken, but we left the table with the agreement that actually if every single one of us invites the one person that is standing outside of the circle to be inside of the circle, then we have already contributed to a multiplicity of voices within the circle. And we have already, I don't know, so to say, participated in an act of solidarity. And I'm only bringing up this example because I think that this is one way to look at an action of solidarity. Then, of course, when you look at it from a perspective as a network like the new kid on the block, as Clara called it, the Documentary Association of Europe that I'm representing here today, there's also this question: what kind of role do networks speak in when we are talking about solidarity? Should a network decide what solidarity means, or is it maybe much rather the role of a network to create spaces in which solidarity can take place? And I think, in a way, that this is how we have been looking at actions of solidarity within DAY, by saying we can provide the infrastructure, we can provide the network, and we can extend. And I think this is a very, very important aspect of it. Not only talk about being accessible, but really extend the hand and also make sure that, again, like a diversity of people can enter, now I'm going to call it the structure or the room, and participate in it. Because I think oftentimes it's not enough to say, yes, we are open to everyone. Yes, we stand in solidarity with X, Y, Z. But I think it requires a very specific invitation and space making for these conversations to happen. And like one of the ways where we've seen that happening over the course of the last weeks of DAY was when we decided, and this was a response to COVID-19, and we will talk about this in more detail later, I know, but I still wanted to bring it up here because all of what we said was we're going to host like a weekly hangout, and it started with putting out, or actually it started with Bridget writing messages in Facebook Messenger, and already in the first one we had 40 people in 4 different groups. And the response was huge. And actually, what we did with that was to provide the space where those happen, where those discussions can happen, and where these exchanges can happen, without dictating what kind of exchanges would be happening in the spaces. And they took on their own lives. And the group discussions, the groups are growing every week, and the structure is becoming more stable and more concrete every week. But what happens within belongs to the participants of this space. I hope I'm making sense.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very good. We come back to the more concrete elements of that a little later on, Marion. I want to pass the word to you, Sonia, representing Crew United and really working with solidarity, I think with all the positive connotations that it has on a very local level or regional level.
Yes, for the moment, thank you, Ove. Yes, for the moment, it is more local, but as I already said in the video and the presentation, of course, we are really reaching out for Europe, and the site exists in French since a couple of months. It's soon it will be accessible in Polish, and there will be other countries as well. So of course, but you're right, from our experience, of course, we have nearly 25 years of experience, mostly in the German-speaking countries, and as well, we have been thinking about, and we've been brainstorming together again about the aspects of solidarity, especially for the documentary sector. And one aspect which, in our view, is really has to be more discussed is really how solidarity can be created structurally. So solidarity in a sense of a community and a mutual help is not simply there. It really has to be encouraged. And for instance, this is really concrete, but those are things that popped in our mind. We should, for example, develop concepts for training solidarity actually, and collective actions, for example, at film schools, because far too often the artistic self-realization is still taught here, and this is often at the expense of and in the competition with the fellow students. So this could be one approach, for example, that we were thinking about. The documentary sector is organized to an even greater extent than other sectors throughout freelancers and self-employment, and especially now in these times, our solidarity, what we think should really be directed in particular at those who are currently have no social security, for whom there are no regulations, or for example, short-time work, who do not receive unemployment benefit, and who ultimately, if at all, fall on minimum social security. Those are really like very actual themes that came into our mind when we were thinking about solidarity, and there are lots of other aspects as well, so, which we may be talking about later.
Absolutely, absolutely. I just want to remind everybody that we are taking questions as we go along. So if anybody wants to post a question, feel free to do that. You don't have to listen to Sonia, Marion, Isabel, and me all the time. You can join us as well and post a question or a theme. Just write in the little box on the right-hand side of your screen where it says questions, and then you have the possibility to join us here also with the video and join the debate and join the discussion about solidarity. It's of course obvious that since beginning of this year, many things have changed due to the pandemic, and the need for solidarity, of course, has completely changed. But if we go back to the end of last year, so to say, before the whole pandemic, and saw the way that you were operating, what were some of the key needs of solidarity that you had identified and based your operations on back then? Isabel, can I start with you?
Yeah, the key needs of solidarity. Well, I think actually it goes back to what I said earlier, that I think one of the keys for me is the mutualness, the exchange. But that has very much to do also with the field wherein we work as a funding filmmakers that come from countries where there are less economical opportunities. So already you're dealing with an inequality. And ideally that inequality wouldn't be there. So it's very much about having that dialogue and that exchange, which is on an equal basis. And so, I mean, the needs of solidarity, I guess it also, I mean, it has to do, it probably goes back to, like with many, with all dialogues and exchanges, that it's, you need a certain openness also, to be open to the other, to be aware and open to accept the other perspectives, the other forms of filmmaking. I mean, it goes very much, if you translate it to like the more practical sense of how life used to be before COVID, we go to, I guess we can look at how the market works. Market of documentary films, and what kind of narratives are accepted and what narratives are not accepted, and what narratives are sellable and what are not, and how there is already a limitation. So I mean, and you could say that is a non-openness because of this limitation, because of the idea that the market only needs certain products because they are sellable. So yeah, I'm not sure this answers your question, but
no, but you talk about the need for exchange, and I think that is, of course, very much what you have been working with at the Bertha Fund.
Yeah.
Marion, you talked about also inviting people into the circle and also making initiatives that breach outside maybe the already established industry. Did you see that as a key need of solidarity, or have you also identified others?
I'd say it is absolutely one of the key elements of solidarity. Obviously, DAY was just founded, so I might bring in some examples from my previous work. I'm one of the co-founders of DOK.fest, and I've also worked up until recently. And in the context of DOK.fest, together with the Arrate Fund for Arts and Culture, and also the IDFA Bertha Fund and DOK Leipzig and others, we've been running the documentary convention in 2018 and 2019, unfortunately not 2020 yet. And I think one of the things that we have seen there, and I think this fits quite well into some of the things that Isabel has also just touched upon, is that again, I come back of what is our role as, let's call it, support organizations as well, networks, and regardless if it's networks or funds or actual training initiatives or support organizations. And one of the things that we've seen happening there is that, again, I come back to something that I said earlier of creating these spaces and putting the structures and extending hand and mixing people together that would maybe otherwise not be sitting at the same table, and also be and be brave enough to challenge how things have been done traditionally is, I guess, also one of the things. And then when you put also as support organizations or as people who run networks, put topics on the agenda that are otherwise not being discussed for a variety of reasons, because because as networks we are representing, ideally we are representing a membership, or as support organizations we are somehow representing our beneficiaries and the needs of our beneficiaries, and are kind of also backed by them. So this gives us the opportunity to put topics on the agenda that otherwise wouldn't be discussed, and on the other hand, take away from the individual the responsibility of bringing this topic up themselves. And I think then part of this is to be patient enough to let these processes grow. And one of the examples Isabel mentioned in the introduction as well is the discussion that has been going on about fairer co-production practice, international co-production practices, that started in 2018 and in the convention in Leipzig went on to over a think tank in IDFA and various meetings in between, and then came back to the convention in Leipzig, and was just this year was adopted by the IDFA Bertha Fund and that's, of course, Isabel can talk much more eloquently about, but into some of their regulations, or not regulations, but guidelines, and is now finding its way in the documentary industry. And maybe we won't see any effect tomorrow or the day after, but the seed has been planted. So I think it's about creating spaces where seeds can be planted, if this makes sense again. And one of the things, and Isabel said this before as well, it's like this, looking at it from a very mutual perspective and from a perspective of exchange, collaboration, and success, and also as those holding the power on being as transparent and honest about what can be done and what can't be done, and what can be delivered and what cannot be delivered as possible.
Maybe I was just listening to Marion, thinking also, it's also about the terms of solidarity. Who dictates the terms and conditions? And not about pointing fingers, but I guess about being in a space, so with the role from the networks to create that space to discuss if the terms are fair, not fair, or good, not good, but I guess also to, because it's not, I think the danger with the solidarity as a word, it's also it's about that it's only a one-way stream. So, and if it's a one-way stream, who sets the terms? And so then we get back again to the word mutual, but it's also about the terms of the solidarity.
Sonia, one of the things that you initiated is the Fair Film Awards, that is actually giving room for that kind of mutual dialogue in the film industry. Tell us a little bit about how you work with that.
Well, yes. Before I already explained it in the presentation a little bit, the Fair Film Award, and that we have 2 Fair Film Awards. And actually, just right before COVID came into our way, the plan was to use the DOK.fest to exchange ideas actually with the documentary film industry together on how the Fair Film Award nonfiction can be further developed. Because in the past we met some resistance from the documentary industry itself during the first run in 2019, which has what we think a lot to do with the way documentary filmers see themselves. So we really have to get into an exchange together and hear all the different opinions about this, because we see really the necessity to start a discussion with the industry, and even maybe before evaluating a price and fairness, if and how, in addition to an artistic discussion about documentary films, also have a discussion about working conditions and on documentaries, and how to improve the precarious social situation of the professionals in this field. And so how can our questions that we have in mind is how can such a transformation process towards more fairness and sustainability can be shaped? Which fairness criteria can be used to describe a target state? What is the target state that we want to have? How can the nonfiction industry be activated to participate in such a process? And yeah, how can fairness as an industry topic can be made visible and really appreciated mutually? Does everybody want this actually, or and yeah, that's maybe the transfer of the award idea from the fictional sector. What we did, what I explained, really makes sense. We were already also yeah, asking ourselves, maybe that's not the way to do it. Maybe we'd have to really do it in another way, and that's what we wanted to do in a workshop during the DOK.fest this year. But of course, this is only on pause, and hopefully this also this get together will maybe give new context, new ideas, and that this will go on after this discussion. That we can workshop online since we cannot meet in person.
Exactly. That sounds definitely like a plan. We have actually questions coming in.
Wow.
And we have Rosemary, who's going to join us with the video, and she has a question about subtitling.
Oh, hello. Just a moment. Sorry, just oops. Sorry, one moment. Hello, am I with you? Yeah,
yes,
great.
we hear and
Hello,
see you,
hi.
Rosemary.
Thanks very much indeed. Hi, for taking a question from me. I'd just like to raise the issue of the subtitler in the whole of the film industry, including the documentary sector. I'm a freelance subtitler, and many of us subtitlers work through agencies, through subtitling agencies. Very often we don't have direct contact with the filmmaker, so we would really, I suppose part of this is a plea to the filmmakers, to the directors, to the producers, to talk directly to the subtitler, the translator, the subtitler. It comes through, very often comes through an agency, and there's always the people in the agency sitting in the middle. And it would be brilliant if the directors could say, we would like, please, to personally talk to the subtitlers, assuming that they would like to, that you would like to. But obviously it makes for a much better translation if you can have that direct exchange. So one of the issues that I really have, and I've come across a problem with it recently, is that we're not credited very often on the subtitle credit. The agency takes the credit. There's the subtitle translator is not named. So it makes it difficult, for example, getting accreditation at film festivals, because there's no record of us. I've worked in the industry now for 15 years. I've done many documentaries, many films, but you know, it's hard because you're an unknown, and everyone would benefit if, is my view, if we could have that more direct contact and
All right.
and
Rosemary, do you have a concrete question to anyone in the panel?
I'm a freelance. Yeah, I'm a freelance, and I work mainly with agencies because that's where most of the work comes from. And it's one of the things is networking. I suppose many of us are not. We're not natural self-promoters.
Rosemary,
yeah.
sorry to cut you off. Do you have a question to anyone in the panel or a specific?
No, it's okay. It's to raise. It's just really for. I wanted to raise that issue, and for example, with Crew United, which sounds fantastic. The issue is you may not know who the subtitler is in the credits.
Okay, we bring the Rosemary. We bring the question to Sonia. Is there a way to work with this so we can bring solidarity to subtitlers?
Yeah, of course. I'm pretty sure that we have the subtitler as a credit for. So we have really cover all professions of the audiovisual industry, and so we also have the subtitler, and you can register on Crew United in your profession. And add yourself to all the projects you have been participating in. And then this would give you much more visibility, of course. Yeah, all professions that do exist, which is the case in yours, are in the database, and all the degrees. So everything. So it's really the whole industry. It's very, very detailed and precise, and that's what we were. What's also was said in the presentation. That's what we do also with the European vision or the international vision, not to do like Google Translate and just give the German profession just a name in English or in French, but we really go into the countries and go get in touch with the associations and with the professionals, really to find out what is the exact name of the profession and and is it really the same definition or are there differences? So that's what we do.
On that? May I just come back on that? Presume you're checking to see how can you check to know that the subtitler saying that they've done the film has done the film if we're not credited anywhere?
But you said there are regulations with the agencies, for example. But actually, our experience from nearly really 25 years of work with the German-speaking countries is that the community really does it. So just to say also something about the community, the members, we have really now it's even nearly 38,000 members, active members that we have, and not only German anymore. So it's becoming more and more international. And the vision really it works really for Germany and the German-speaking countries. And we see now that it also works for France since a couple of months. Really, we are very accessible. So we have an office where you can write emails to us, you can call us, and we're not like a database and then it's really out there and it will take a long time until there are corrections. Whenever there's something false or people find that it's not correct, they will come over to us and really tell us if it's not correct or not. And this has been working for a very, very long time. We really trust the community, and because we trust the community, we trust transparency. Actually, that's our philosophy that we have, and it works very well. If this is an answer.
Rosemary.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your
question. For taking up your time, but thank you. It's really helpful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right. If anybody else has a question or they want to raise a topic, feel free to do that. You just put it in the little box on the right-hand side of your screen where it says question. And then we have Celia sitting in the back taking care of the questions, and we will line you up to come in and join us here, either through video or audio, so you can join the discussion. Feel free to do that. We come back to the general discussion about solidarity that we had, because you all identified different ways of working. What are the results that you have seen so far? I mean, I know, Marion, the day is very new, but you have also been engaged in other initiatives. What are the results we see so far? Have we been able create more solidarity? Are we able to bring more people into the circle and actually create a better representation and a wider scope in the documentary industry, or how do you see it?
Well, that's a very wide and that's difficult to answer. I find it quite difficult to answer this question because I mean, at the end of the day, we would have to have numbers, right, and facts and figures to see if whether the number of newcomers into certain circles have increased, or if they find it easier, if people would find it easier to enter circles or to be part of something, or if measures that have been put in place to allow more people to participate or allow higher participation have been fruitful or not. In general, thinking about results, I think going back to the idea of being accessible, inclusive, and kind of foster collaboration and collaborative atmosphere, let's say, or is. So I think one of the things that I find working really well is the moment decoding takes place. I'm going to use the word decoding, or you could also use translation. And it's for instance in situations of if you take festivals, for example, and we all know how overwhelming festivals could be, and one of the things that we have done in DOK.fest, for instance, is like regularly organizing delegations to go to festivals, but not only for them to participate, but also to make sure that before they enter this space, we try and break the space down for people. And this is not done from a we know you don't know perspective. That's not what I wanted to sound, because it's really not like this, because I've been myself so oftentimes in the situation where I needed someone to orient me, let's say, like to orient me into a new space that I've never been into. So I find those, for instance, having tours, having festival tours, or doing like an ABC introduction into an industry of a certain country, tools that have been working really well, I think, to bring in new voices. Then I think another thing is really what I mentioned earlier before, being brave enough to try and do things differently. And in a way, this is to some extent what we have to all do now. I mean, we are all now having to let go of working mechanisms that we are used to and adopting to new ways of working, new ways of collaboration. And this brings with it challenges and opportunities, I would say. And I think in the end, it will be to kind of find a hybrid mix of both, of the old way and the new way that makes most sense, and keep some of the new ways of collaborating with each other and accessing each other, but also not kind of throw all of the old ways of showing solidarity and working together and collaborating out with the bathwater. Because I think one of the dangers I personally see in what is happening at the moment, that we fall into the trap of believing that because we're all going online and suddenly we think that everyone from all over the globe can participate in these things. This is a sign of more solidarity and more collaboration and more accessibility. And I think that this is to some extent true, but it's to another extent also a false trend. So again, it's about debating the terms and debating for whom this is true and for whom this might not be true. Because all of us, or all those people who have been part of the clique and part of the circle before, for them it's not so much of an issue to be in an online setup. But is it really easier for a filmmaker that has never been invited into a pitching forum to attend an online pitching forum where they won't have the chance to meet someone over a coffee? And we're taking away this opportunity from people if we now think that this is the new way to go? Or isn't the filmmaker in a repressive country who, for their own security, can no longer join a pitching forum to pitch their project because they might endanger themselves, or they might be put in danger by the questions that are being asked, and hence they are suddenly outside of the circle, even though beforehand they would have been part of the circle. So I know that I'm not answering your questions, but when I think about your questions, these are all kind of different thoughts that come into my mind. I have to say, and again, to go back, that I think it's also discussing what solidarity means. Sorry, I'm doing that, but what solidarity means must be an ongoing process, and it's not like there's no solid answer to what it is and what it should be, and what works today might not work tomorrow anymore, I think.
Absolutely. Questions that raises more questions are always good. Huh? Isabel, you have been working with the IDFA fund for some years now. Do you see results, or do you still feel like there's a lot of room for improvement, or how do you see the situation from your work?
That's a question to my conscious. Of course, I see a lot of results. I mean, in the sense of individual results. Great films that have been made, that travel the whole world, that are seen by a lot of people, and really all over the world. Filmmakers that are also able to make a second film and start building a career as a filmmaker, and are not just making one films, enter collaborations. I mean, there are all these kinds of results, but I would really, I think there are individual results, because each and every case is so different. The situation in a country is so different. So, and I'm talking about results of the work that we do, just to, in my definition, as I put it earlier, of how I see the word solidarity within the work of the fund. But yeah, maybe on the more pessimistic side, I think I'm not so sure if you really look at the market, that has really changed, that has really opened up. I think it has, and of course it has, but again, it's individual cases. And obviously, I mean, the European documentary financing market has gone through so many changes in the last years, and it's so different than that it was 10 years ago or 15 years ago, where everybody is struggling to get funding, and there's a dependency on just a few types of funders to make films, that also makes it difficult. But with that regard, if I look at that market, I'm not so sure that it has really changed in the sense of openness, and like really opening up opportunities to all kinds of story. I mean, it's still dictated by economy, by money, by what is sellable. And also, if you look at what, even though, I mean, if I look at the Netherlands, but I think you see that in more countries, and we see that also with the films we support, more films are getting small theatrical releases in different territories, be it either in the countries where they come from, but also in Europe. I mean, in Germany, in France, some more in the Netherlands, and also particularly more documentaries. But it's, I mean, in an ideal world, you would see like a broad variety. Also, the smaller films would end up in cinema, I think, and you don't see that. On the other hand, I do. If I look at the work we've been doing more overall at IDFA with regards to making this international and opening an event like IDFA to voices and a place, creating a place for really people from all over the world. So in the true sense of international, I think there we are achieving results. I mean, it goes step by step, but you see it in the film program, you see it in the people attending, and it's also a mutual thing. It's not only because of the efforts of IDFA, but it's also because of the efforts of institutions like Marion was just saying, DOK.fest, but there are many more like that are investing in their filmmakers and bringing them over to a place like IDFA, or also other festivals, and in that sense contributing to that mutual sense of the solidarity and of the exchange that I think is very important to keep documentary film alive.
Before we go on, I just want to say to all participants of the sessions, if you want to ask a question, feel free to do so. Just type in your question on the right hand side of your screen in the little box where it says questions, and then we will bring you into this discussion with audio and video at any time. But I think, Isabel, we are coming close to, I think, a very essential element of this discussion about solidarity, because I mean, we can create all the structures and we can invite people into circles and we can do all this work in and around the documentary industry. But if the real core, if the people who are really sitting on the resources, and here I'm not only talking about money, I'm also talking about distribution, I'm talking about actually getting a film out. If that core and if that decision-making power is coming into fewer and fewer hands and being more and more centralized, I mean, we are also seeing opposing interests.
Yeah.
And I think this is where we get into some of the real core discussions about solidarity, because in the end, it is also about decision making.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how do we deal with this? How do we create real solidarity, so to say, also influencing how resources are being distributed?
Well, I mean, I think I'm not sure I have the answer to your question. What I do believe is very interesting is actually the situation we're living in now. Because,
yes.
I mean, how it has changed everything. And when we talk solidarity now, we're not only talking solidarity with the documentary filmmakers that already were struggling to make a living wherever in the world, most of them, 99% of them, but we're talking about all these different actors that together form this documentary industry that need solidarity. I mean, that are in need of solidarity of each other. So it's also the commercial parties, it's also the sales agents, the distributors, the cinemas, the television. It's so, yeah, I mean, it's an opportunity to look into new ways. The question is if all these solutions or ways to deal with each other and be solidar with each other are going to last when that vaccine comes and supposedly we go back to normal. But no, I mean, it's part like the discussion that is now going on all the time. On the one hand, with regards to festivals and online screenings. And doing video on demand, just putting films. How long can you go on? Who are you solidar with? But also just all the online collections that have been put online for free. What does that do with the catalog of a distributor, with the catalog of our sales agents? I mean, it goes so many ways, and yeah, I mean, it's very interesting.
It is very interesting.
Netflix saying that films that go to premiere in an online festival are not an option for them to buy them anymore because they will have had their VOD window. What does that do with them? I mean, there are all these different actors coming in and yeah, making things extremely complicated and very interesting, I would say. But I mean, as far as from, if I go back after like these more bigger questions to what we do with the fund and to with regards to your question, I mean, for us, it's a question of continuing. The only way I see to create an openness, or when there is an opening in the door, to try to open that wider, is by showing what there is out there. And in our case, it's showing those independent voices from underrepresented regions, underrepresented in this market regions, and continue giving them their support and creating opportunities for them, so that people in the industry see them and their films.
Very good. We're coming closer and closer, of course, to the topic that we cannot avoid, and of course that we also should discuss, is the whole Corona COVID-19 situation. And actually, we have a question coming in. It is from Arrate-Fernandez. He's from Movies That Matter. And Eric, maybe he's a little shy. He wanted me to read the question, so I will read it. He's asking, I could imagine very well that in these Corona times, many people in the documentary film industry, including filmmakers, are facing financial problems. Is there anything that is being done by IDFA or by Crew United or other actors to support them financially? Or what should be done? Question B, what do you advise to documentary film festivals to tackle these problems? So 2 questions. Let's start with the first one. What can we do for filmmakers? Sonia, it was partly directed to you.
Yes. Well, as I already said, we have the newsletter. So we already now our everyday business really has, in parts, has switched really for some employees really to do the researches about all the changes because of COVID and all the whole impact that it has on the filmmakers, the professionals, the freelancers. Yeah, so that's what we do. We inform them, which is in general very well received by the members. So of course there are some who say, okay, I don't want to hear about this anymore, and then they can switch, they can turn it off in their account. They don't have to get those emails, but mostly the people really appreciate this because they can really they have an overview every day of and can pick out really the informations that are interesting for them, and it's already reduced on the audiovisual sector with the whole information that we have every day is, I think, a big help for the people, and that's what we do. So that's the one thing, and of course we are private, we're a company, we're not an association, so we as I also explained in the video, we depend on our members, also of course on our paying members, but we have half of the a little bit more than the members are non-paying members. So just to give you an idea of how it works, you don't have to pay to get, for example, the newsletter or whatever, and to show yourself to be visible. But of course, we as Crew United depend on this that we can exist, and this answers your question, I think. And I think the actually what we realize right now with all the informations that we get every day is that the themes, the topics that we have right now are topics that we knew before. We know them. They are not brand new. They are just more. It's just that it's for everybody right now. So the thing we should really profit from the situation to that we are all in the same, more or less in the same situation right now, and that we don't forget that, but that it was already there, that it's just more, that it's just bigger, and that we are all aware of it right now. But it's nothing that is really due to COVID. That is just, it just shows how bad lots of things in the working conditions, in the structure, in the awareness for culture in our society is. So that's what we should really do, just take the power of this and make something of it.
And there was a question also about festivals. Maybe Isabel, you are.
And the question was what festivals can do for filmmakers?
Yeah, the question was, what do you advise to documentary film festivals to tackle these problems?
Well, if it was that easy that we, the documentary film festivals, can solve this problem,
we would be happy, right?
We would be happy. Thank you, Eric, for the complicated question. I know Eric, so he's a nice guy. Well, I mean, I think it's in our case, but that also depends on each festival, because not every festival is, I would say, also in the same position financially. But as long as an organization, you can continue to exist and do your activities and pay your staff, like IDFA is lucky to have, at least for the coming time. But if this goes on forever, obviously that will also end. But I think that, I mean, everything that we're, how we're looking at the situation and thinking of what we can do now in the near future, but also towards the end of the year, is all in mind with our audience on the one hand, and on the other hand, the filmmakers, and filmmakers, I would say in a broad sense, because it's everybody involved in making and then again promoting, distributing whatever a film. So I think it depends very much. I mean, in the end, we are all film festivals I know are all non-profits. I mean, we don't screen films for profit. IDFA screens films, and from those earnings, we pay for the activities that we organize. So I guess it's very much, I mean, the biggest problem at this moment, obviously, for everybody involved in filmmaking is a financial one. On the one hand, I mean, how do I keep on my business going? How do I survive? I think the second biggest problem is related to that, but it's particularly for films that were just finished in the last 4 months, is what do I do with my film and where does it go? But that again is then related to making an earning on that film. And as a festival, I think it's also, again, going back to each individual organization to look at what can you do in that sense to support filmmakers with that regard. But that will be different for everybody, for big organizations, for small organizations, for fiction, for documentary. So, I mean, as I said, in our case, with thinking of what we're going to do in the coming time, we do that with two groups in our mind. On the one hand, our audience, on the other hand, our professionals, the filmmakers.
And I guess what is slowly coming to our minds is that it is not the current situation is not something we have to get over. We have to adapt. We have to find ways of working within what I call the new reality, because that's how it is, regardless of whether you're organizing a festival or you have just produced a film or you're about to shoot a film, or I mean, you have to adapt to this new reality. Marion, sorry I interrupted you.
Yeah, not at all. I just wanted to add to what Sonia and Isabel were saying with regards to how do you, I mean, give filmmakers a financial contribution as well, or support them financially speaking through these difficult times. And I think one of the, again, going also back to the challenges that I mentioned earlier of the current situation, I think where we have to be, where we should potentially be, what's the right word? Observant of how this current situation perpetuates already existing inequality, because who are the countries who are able to bring out all of the support programs, like state, federal support programs that go towards artists and go to supporting the arts in general, including filmmakers, film festivals, cinemas, etc., etc. These are those who are originally in Europe and all over the world, and it's the European powerhouses, Germany first and foremost. I mean, of course I can say I'm super proud to live in a country that first stepped up to offer the support, but on the other hand, we also know the price that was paid by others for the fact that this money is now available and that it can be paid, and what this would also mean moving on. And then on the other hand, I also do believe it is a chance to be, I mean, I don't like the idea of that we are on in this boat together. We are somehow in this boat, in a similar boat, but not on the same, I like to say we are not all on the same class within this boat. If you see what I'm saying. And
it's a Corona cruise.
The question is, yeah, it's Corona cruise with different classes. There is Corona, we are all inside of it, but we are kind of participating within it from very, very different from very different perspectives and from very, very different realities and situations. And I think this needs to be taken in consideration when thinking about how can we maybe make parts of this more crisis-proof for the future. And in particular, talking about online festivals, and just recently been reading an article where there was this big claim on paying filmmakers screening fees for the films. And I know, of course, that it's a one-sided ask to say film festivals pay screening fees to filmmakers when they themselves are also struggling to pay their staff to stay alive, etc., etc. But is there a way to maybe influence funders that beforehand would have paid travel costs, that this is kind of repurposed into paying a screening fee? Are these kind of ways that we should be thinking about, that we should be lobbying for? I mean, again, I'm putting those out with question marks, because many of the filmmakers and also other actors of the industry, they don't have the chance to wait that there will be a money donation or not donation or a fund be made available from their countries to support them. So can we think about support mechanisms that are also financially, even if they are small and symbolic, for filmmakers and actors.
All right. The need for new initiatives in order to deal with the current situation. I think we could spend 1 more hour discussing just that, because I think there is a big need. But unfortunately, we are out of time. So we have to end our discussion about solidarity here and continue it on other platforms. So I just want to end by saying thank you very much to Sonia, to Isabel and Marion for joining the discussion and having this debate about solidarity and how we can work with it and how we can improve it within the documentary film industry. And I'm absolutely sure the discussion does not end here, but I think it was a good kind of state of affairs to see where we are and also what is needed. And then we can continue the discussion on other platforms and maybe even in real life soon when we're able to meet again.
Hopefully.
So thank you very much to DOK Munich and to the Creative Europe desks who are behind this initiative and who have been organizing this whole Traveling Docs and Networks for the Future series. Thank you, as I said, to the 3 panelists. Thank you to the people who attended and also to those who asked questions. Feel free to share this discussion and also continue it amongst you on other platforms. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.